All right. Panther-Lair postgame. Fix the levels there so I'm not blowing it up, not destroying your ears here on a Saturday night. November 20th, 2021. Pitt 48, Virginia 38. It went quite literally all the way down to the wire. This thing, start to finish, boring first quarter, actually. Only one touchdown in this game. But it got exciting after that. Got exciting in the second quarter. Got fired up in the third quarter. And certainly the fourth quarter was one to remember. And the end result, Pitt wins 48-38. Pitt improves to 9-2 overall on the season, 6-1 in the ACC. And most importantly, as you are well aware, Coastal Division champions. And we'll give everybody a few minutes to filter in here before we get too deep on this thing. But you know the storylines for tonight. You know what we're going to talk about. You know what we have to say. And it's something that I think we've been building up to for the last week and a half, going back to the Carolina game. And you can even go back before that. I mean, I think really, if you want to draw a timeline, you go back to the Georgia Tech game. You know, they lose to Western Michigan, obviously, blow the doors off of New Hampshire, and then they go to Georgia Tech. First conference game of the season, the real test. And they go down there, and they hang 52 on them. Say, okay, this offense looks like it might be real. You know, they're coming out of, they played 5 games at that point, close to half the season, and they look like they might be legit, look like they might be the real deal on offense. Defense, maybe some questions here and there, but the offense looks legitimate. And so they go to Virginia Tech. This is going to be the big test. I mean, this is going to be the game we're going to find out if Pitt is for real. Somebody on the message board said it was a tipping point in the season. This is what they said before the game. This game will be a tipping point for the season. Well, I don't know if it was a tipping point or not, but if it was, it tipped things in a certain direction for Pitt. It tipped things in the right direction. And then they get Clemson at home. All right? And the momentum that had started to build with the win at Georgia Tech, and the momentum that continued to build with the win at Virginia Tech, they come home to host Clemson. And this is the game. This is the big one. This is the one where Pitt can show if they're really for real. And they were for real. Now, they lost to Miami after that. And that was certainly a disappointment, and that was a step back, but it didn't deter from their goals, and they still controlled their destiny. They still had the opportunity in front of them to go out and grab the Coastal Division Championship. They had to just take care of business. And so what do? They go knock Duke around. And then they get Thursday night against Carolina. And it's not pretty. And there's struggles. And they don't score a point in the second half. And they go to overtime. And they gut it out. And they win. And now the opportunity really presents itself. An opportunity to clinch the Coastal Division. And let's make this as absolutely crystal clear as we possibly can, so we don't have to hear about this again for the next 3 years, the way we've heard about it for the last 3 years, okay? There's no backing in. There's no winning a multi-way tie. There's no, anything other than what happened here, which is Pitt had an opportunity to clinch the division with 1 game left to play, and they did it. They didn't win a tiebreaker. They didn't back into it. They didn't need anybody else to do anything else. As a matter of fact, the one team whose outcomes could have impacted Pitt's chances in the Coastal is Virginia, and they didn't play an ACC game for the last 3 weeks. So the last 3 weeks, Pitt has been playing games, and for the most part, at least 2 out of the 3 weeks, winning games without any kind of, and in getting closer to that Coastal Division title, getting closer and giving themselves that opportunity without any help from Virginia, because Virginia didn't play an ACC game. If Virginia had some ACC games in that stretch and potentially lost one, Pitt would have, maybe clinched with another team losing, or had a chance to clinch a little bit sooner or something like that. None of that happened. Virginia played at BYU. They had an off week, and they hosted Notre Dame. Not one of those games had any impact on Pitt's standing in the Coastal Division. It was this game. It was today at Heinz Field when Pitt could clinch the Coastal. And it would, if they did so, it would be a result of no one else's efforts, no one else's performances, no one else's games except their own. And for everyone who wants to talk about how Pitt never is able to seize the moment, never is able to take advantage of opportunity, never is able to build any momentum and actually win something. That is exactly what they did right here tonight. And it's the accumulation, or it's the sum of the previous 2 months of football. It's something they started building. I mean, you could say the whole season and back into spring ball and all that. It really started building at that Georgia Tech game. And since then, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Clemson, Duke, Carolina, Virginia, they're 6-1 over the last 7 games. 7-1 over the last 8 if you want to go back to New Hampshire. But when you're talking about ACC games, they're 6-1. The opportunity was there to clinch the Coastal, and they did it. They're not leaving it up to chance. If they had lost today, they would have had to beat Syracuse and hope Virginia Tech beat Virginia. They'd be relying on someone else. They're not relying on anyone else. They did it. Just like they did it 3 years ago. And for some reason, there are still people who don't want to give them credit for that Coastal Division title in 2018. Say they backed into it. This has gotten written, and it's not even fans on message boards. People have written this in seemingly reputable publications that Pitt backed into the Coastal 3 years ago. They didn't back into the Coastal 3 years. They clinched it with their own win. Again, improving to 6-1 with a win at Wake Forest with 1 game left to play in the season. And that's what they did here tonight at Heinz Field, 48-38. And it wasn't pretty. It wasn't always pretty. Let's say there were some pretty things in this game. Izzy Abanikand's touchdown return, kickoff return for a touchdown. That was pretty. Jordan Addison, almost every time he touched the ball, but certainly his 4 touchdowns, those were pretty. A few of Kenny Pickett's passes, not all of them, but a few of Kenny Pickett's passes, those were pretty. Some defensive plays, not a lot of defensive plays. Some defensive plays were pretty. Pinning him with 5 sacks on Brennan Armstrong. And let's just say, this right off the bat. If Brennan Armstrong was playing with a rib injury tonight, I'd be hard-pressed to believe that. Because that kid was on fire. He was sharp. What did he finish? 36 of 49 for 487 and 3 touchdowns. Now, he threw the ball 49 times. But he was he was on fire. He was playing really, really well. And I know we're going to have criticisms about the defense, and I know a lot of that's going to be merited. When you give up, what did Pitt end up giving up to here? 514 yards. When you give up 500 yards, and this applies to Virginia as well, you didn't play very good defense. There's no question about that. But I will say, and not just as a defense of Pitt, but it's something that I think when you want to levy criticisms at this defense, and I think there are some to make. I think you do need to keep in mind the fact that Brennan Armstrong's really freaking good. And they've got pass catchers who are bigger than any humans have a right to be. Those guys are giants out there. And did Pitt try to defend them with anything that, you would say is, well, that's a smart idea? No, probably not. But I don't know what defense you were going to have on 99 Thompson. When he's like 6'4" out there. He's listed at 6'4". He looked like he was 6'6". How are you going to defend that? Jelani Woods, the tight end. How are you going to defend that? The guy looks like he's 6'6", 6'7". You can have Brandon Hill play really well against him and still give up passes because there's just a huge size discrepancy. Marquez Williams, and I don't even know if Williams got targeted as much as Damari Mathis. They went at Mathis more. But I'll say this, though. All right, when you want to talk about highlights in this game and key plays in this game and key points in this game, Virginia's final drive, end of the game, 3rd and 2 from the 14, minute 29 left to play, Pitt leading by 10 points. Brennan Armstrong threw to Dontavian Wicks. Wicks finished the game with 10 catches for 144 yards. But on this play, 3rd and 2 from the 14, he throws to Wicks in the end zone. Damari Mathis breaks up the pass. Huge play. One of the best defensive plays in the game that wasn't a sack. And just a gigantic play. Set up 4th down, and Armstrong's pass was incomplete. Pitt kind of shifted their coverage a little bit, I think, to at least pretend like they were going to put someone in the middle of the field to try and defend some of those plays. But Damari Mathis breaking up that pass on 3rd down was huge. And so, as it relates to the defense, and I think we'll probably talk about this a bunch of times over and over, Armstrong's really good. He's leading the nation in total offense per game. And that's not a fluke. That's what he's done through 10 games heading into this weekend, right? Thompson and Wicks and Woods and Billy Kemp, those guys are not chumps. Those are legitimate playmakers. There's a reason Virginia's offense came into this game with the reputation that they have. Now, Pitt's defense has its flaws, and they are many. And we've talked about them many, many times, and I'm not going to let them off the hook when they give up 500 yards to an offense. When they let a quarterback throw for 487, there's no getting away from that. But I think you do have to give some credit to Brennan Armstrong in this game. You have to give some credit to their receivers in this game. Those guys are really, really good. And if they're all back next year, and I don't know what their plans are, I don't know what their eligibility is, at least some of them could be back. Armstrong's a junior. That's a problem. That's a problem because I don't know if next year you're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with them and have a quarterback throw for 340 and 4 touchdowns like Kenny Pickett did today. Kenny Pickett didn't have his best day. 2 interceptions. One kind of doesn't count, just like Armstrong's interception doesn't count. It was at the end of the first half and sort of a, kind of on a prayer type of thing. The second interception was bad. Second play of the first half, or second play of the third quarter, second play of the second half. And it was just, it looked like he didn't see the safety there. And we'll ask him about it on the Kenny Pickett show this week of kind of how that interception happened, what he missed, what he didn't see. It looked like he just didn't see the safety was there, and the safety picked it off. But he made some good throws. He made some good plays, left the game for a little bit with an injury. We'll see how that impacts him going forward. But for as much as we are Kenny Pickett supporters, obviously, on this podcast, having the Kenny Pickett show on Panther-Lair.com, and, we're big Kenny guys around here. There's no question about that. I mean, Jordan Addison's the star of this game. 14 catches for 202 yards and 4 touchdowns. He ices the game on a 62-yard touchdown pass on a 3rd and 5 from the 38 with 2:23 on the clock. And this is an interesting sequence here. Coming down near the end, in the final 3 minutes, Pitt gets the ball with 3:47 to go. They have the ball at the 23. They're up by 3. They're protecting a close lead, and they're running, and Virginia's calling a timeout. And it's 2nd and 6 from the 37. It was pretty clear from the alignment. Kenny Pickett goes under center. He's under center on every snap on this drive. And it was pretty clear that Virginia was going to sell out to stop the run. It was going to be just one-on-one coverage out there. And it seemed like maybe 2nd and 6 was the opportunity to go for it, to try and move the chains with the pass. They end up handing it off. Rodney Hammond gets 1 yard. Virginia calls a timeout with 2:23 to go. It's 3rd and 5 from the 38. Again, they line up under center. And again, Virginia lines up in the same defense, expecting the handoff to Rodney Hammond. But I was pretty sure it was going to happen. I think most of us in the press box were pretty sure it was going to happen. And I think if you were watching the game, you probably had a pretty good feeling it was going to happen. They run play action. Kenny Pickett rolls out to his right. He throws a pass to Jordan Addison downfield. And it looks like it's picked off. I mean, the defender is right there. And the defender looks like he's got his hands on the ball. And so many times this season, I've talked about situations where Kenny Pickett wasn't going to let his team lose. In this situation, Jordan Addison was not going to let his team lose because it looked like the defender had the ball. And as Jordan Addison said after the game, I took it away from him. And he did. You watch that clip. He takes the ball away. And he doesn't just take the ball away. He takes the ball away, runs around the guy, and goes the rest of the way for a 62-yard touchdown to make it a 10-point game and effectively ice the game. Monster performance from Jordan Addison tonight. Monster game from him. And, Pat Narduzzi said after the game, if he hasn't, iced secured the Biletnikoff, I don't know what's going to do it or who's going to win it. Addison's now got 1,200 yards receiving, 15 receiving touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown this year on 74 catches. I mean, he's playing at a super high level right now. He's got, I think he's now... Yeah, he's moved into 4th on Pitt's all-time single-season receiving list with a pretty good shot at least to get up into 3rd. with at least 2 games left to play. Or no, they have 3 games left to play. They have Syracuse, the ACC championship game, and a bowl game. With 3 games left to play, he's got an outside shot at, I don't know. Larry Fitzgerald set the record at 1672. I don't think Jordan Addison's going to get another 400 yards. Actually, now that I say the numbers, can Jordan Addison get 400 yards in 3 games? Might actually be surprised if he doesn't. So Jordan Addison has a chance to be, to put his name even more in the record books than he already has. But he was outstanding. He played like one of the best receivers in the country. He played like the best receiver in the ACC. And it just had a monster game. Just a monster game. And he was the player of the game for Pitt today. I don't think there's any question about it. All right, I want to get to the comments and questions because everybody's, you guys have been patient here waiting, and Super Chatter's already jumping in. And we appreciate that. RJC Man 38, you're the first Super Chatter, so I'm going to read your comment, but we're not going to argue about this all night. He says, Whipple still sucks. Well, you know what, man? They just put up 509 yards of total offense, scored 48 points, and they have a top 5 offense in yards, top 5 offense in scoring, top 5 offense in the red zone. They're 9-2. They're 6-1. They won the Coastal. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Do I agree with every play call? No. Did they struggle with some things? Yeah, absolutely. I have a chart actually look, you can see my little handwritten thing that I did after the game. This is all their red zone plays. They ran 18 plays in the red zone. They threw the ball 14 times on those 18 plays. Bad idea. In the second half, they ran 11 plays in the red zone. They ran 8 passes and 3 runs. Those 8 passes that they threw in the red zone, Kenny Pickett completed 3 of them for 23 yards. Bad idea. Just bad idea. Actually, no, I shouldn't say Kenny Pickett completed 3 of them Kenny completed 3 out of 7 attempts. One of the other attempts was Nick Patty attempting a pass with Kenny Pickett split out wide. I'm not going to go full bore on the Bashmark Whipple train, but what the hell were you thinking in that situation? Look, you've got these running backs. Vincent Davis, 12 carries, 100 yards, 8.3 yards per carry. Rodney Hammond, 15 carries, 66 yards, 4.4 yards per carry. Izzy Abanikanda, 3 carries, 19 yards, 6.3 yards per carry. And Izzy Abanikanda, according to Pat Narduzzi, got banged up or tweaked something, so that's why he didn't play in the second half after the first 2 plays. But for him to go through the whole first half with only 3 carries, when he's averaging 6 yards per carry, I feel like you missed an opportunity there. And particularly when you got down into the red zone. The drive, they end up settling for a field goal on a drive where they get to the 19. They throw a pass. Let me see. I'll find the exact. This was the drive. It started like 1 snap at the end of the third quarter when they ran the Wildcat for God knows why. And then they go into the fourth quarter. They drive all the way down. They get to first and goal at the. Let's start in the red zone, right? So they get first and 10 at the 16. That's the wrong drive. That's not the one I want to look at. Hold on. Let me get my rights. Here it is. It was the drive before the one that started with the Wildcat. So they get first and 10 at the 19. And Kenny Pickett throws to Shockey Jacques Louis. He gets a 12-yard pass. Great play. Right after Jacques Louis had a 21-yard pass to get him to the 19. So he gets a 12-yard pass. They get first and goal at the 7. Pickett rolls to his right and ends up throwing the ball away, incomplete. Second and goal at the 7, he throws a short pass to Jordan Addison. I think it was like a screen pass, actually, where he just couldn't get around the block of Jacques Louis. That got 2 yards. So now it's third and goal at the 5, and Pickett again, he scrambles and he throws the ball away. Earlier on this drive, the drive started with Vincent Davis running for 9 yards and then 11 yards, and then 2 plays later, 20 yards. And they don't hand it off once in the red zone. I can't explain that. I disagree with the play calling, and I think you probably do too. For a team you don't tend to think of Pitt's offense as being, at least we haven't in the past tended to think of Pitt's offense being loaded with weapons. But they've got a lot of weapons on this offense. Even with Taysier Mack out, even with Jalen Barden out, they've got a lot of weapons on this offense. And they just, and Melky Stovall didn't dress tonight. And yet they don't seem to be, particularly the run, where they can accomplish a lot of things. Probably help further their passing game if they could establish the run. And they've got the talent to establish the run. And the O-line was blocking relatively well in this game. And yet they just didn't do it. They wouldn't commit to it. For whatever reason, it just wasn't in the cards tonight. Let's see here. Kevin Plaucha comes in as a super chatter. Glad to see it. He says, I know you don't like to swear, Chris, but hail to effing Pitt. Coastal champs, baby. First 9-win season under dues. It's a party on 5th Ave tonight. That's right. It's 9-2 with a real chance to go 10-2. And they haven't won 10 games in the regular season since the early 1980s. They haven't had a season with fewer than 2 regular season losses since the early 1980s. There's a real opportunity here. And this is my thing, and I wrote this right after the game. You can see it on Panther-Lair.com right now. I wrote this after the game, that what today was for Pitt was taking advantage of an opportunity. The opportunity was presented to Pitt of, here, you can clinch the Coastal Division by winning this game. You can do it. You have to, you just have to win this game. You can clinch, okay? This is the opportunity in front of you. And they went out and took it. And the reward for that is there are more opportunities in front of you. There's an opportunity to win 10 games this season. There's an opportunity to win the ACC championship. And there's an opportunity to go to a New Year's Six Bowl. Probably the Peach Bowl. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and say, could you imagine that if they finish 12-2 and they win the Peach Bowl and the ACC championship? But that is a very real opportunity here. Or they finish 11-3, they win the ACC championship and go to the Peach Bowl. Even if they lose, I mean, that's not pie in the sky optimism. That's not counting on the most improbable set of circumstances to sort of conspire and allow a scenario to develop. That's the real opportunity that's in front of Pitt right now. Is a chance to go out and win 10 games, and a chance to go out and win the ACC championship. And a chance to go out and win a New Year's Six Bowl. And I think that was the thing on Wednesday night show. I talked about this. I talked about how Pitt is relevant. They're relevant. Pitt football matters. The outcome of this game had consequences, nationally. The College Football Playoff Committee is going to have to consider Pitt. If Pitt wins the ACC championship game, the College Football Playoff Committee will have to put Pitt into one of the New Year's Six Bowls. Pitt is in that conversation. And for so long, they haven't been. For so long, they've been an afterthought in those sort of discussions, along with a lot of other teams in college football, but they are not right now. And if they continue taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them, they'll continue to be part of that conversation. And they're not going to end up in the playoffs. If they had a chance at that, losing to Miami probably sapped it. But there's no reason this team can't take advantage of the opportunities in front of them and finish in the top 10. I don't know if I think they're a top 10 team, but I think they've won 9 out of their first 11 games. They got a damn good chance of winning number 10 out of their 12, and I think they've got a realistic chance to go to the ACC championship game and get a win there. And there's scenarios for the Atlantic Division. To be honest, I'm not thinking about that too much tonight. I retweeted David Hale from ESPN. He laid him out, whether to be Wake Forest or Clemson or NC State. Clemson won today. Clemson beat Wake Forest 48-27 at Clemson. So Wake Forest is going to drop. They're now 9-2 overall and 6-1 in the ACC, just like Pitt is. They're going to fall out at number 10. They were ranked number 10 in the college football playoff rankings. They're going to drop. Nobody else really directly ahead of Pitt lost. Pitt's 18. Iowa beat Illinois. Iowa's 17. They beat Illinois. They're 33-23 win. Texas A&M was number 16. They played that SEC Classic late season non-conference game. They beat Prairie View A&M 52-3. Wisconsin beat Nebraska. Wisconsin was 15. They beat Nebraska 35-28. BYU was 14. They beat Georgia Southern 34-17. Oklahoma was 13. They beat Iowa State 28-21. And then you get, I don't know if 12 or 11 played. 11 was Baylor. They beat Kansas State 20-10. And, Ole Miss was 12. And they are currently beating Vanderbilt 31-17 in the fourth quarter. So nobody really ahead of Pitt has lost, is losing, or probably will lose. So, unless you get all the way up to, like I say, Wake Forest, it depends on how far they fall after losing at Clemson, who's unranked. I'm guessing Clemson, who's now 8-3 overall, 6-2 in the ACC, they'll climb back into the college football playoff rankings this week. But I don't know where Pitt's place in the college football playoff rankings this week probably depends on how far Wake Forest falls. Does Wake Forest fall below 18? If they do, then Pitt moves up. And if they don't, then Pitt probably stays right where they are. But again, this is what I'm talking about. They don't need to rely on other teams. If they keep winning, if they beat Syracuse and get to 10-2, and if they win the ACC championship game, they'll move up. They'll be top 15, top 12. And if they could win the Peach Bowl, they'll be top 10. And those are all realistic goals with this team, with this quarterback, and the way they're playing this year. It's a pretty good place to be. All right, let's some more super chatters. Jeremy Tunney says, Chris, I'm so proud of this team. Kenny Pickett's truly a Pitt legend now. This season truly has set a new standard and finally broke pitting. Hail to Pitt. I wonder if well, I'm not going to go too far on some of the I'm not going to go too far on some of the hyperboles, but Jeremy follows up and says, thank you for all the coverage. You're truly the best in the game. My favorite podcast out there. Appreciate that. Glad to, I appreciate everybody who tunes in for this thing. I really do. We had some other super chatters here. Yeah, I appreciate everybody who tunes in for these things. I know 10 o'clock was like a late start, but I enjoy this. I'm glad everybody else enjoys doing these love streams. Ugh. Get your head together, man. These live streams as well. It's a lot of fun for sure. And we'll have to start making plans for the ACC championship game, I guess. Syracuse is a night game, 7:30 kickoff next Saturday. That's on the ACC network. So we'll talk after that one, probably around 10:30, 11 o'clock. Hopefully that game goes a little quicker than this one. This one was like, how long was this game? No, only 3 hours and 42 minutes. I thought it cleared the 4-hour mark. But that, we'll see how long the Syracuse game goes. But we'll be live after that. Still making plans for the ACC championship game coverage and what we're going to do there. But we got to have a live stream, right? We got to have a post-game show after the ACC championship game. We got to. Dan Gwynn says, it's a super chatter. We appreciate that, Dan. He says, targeting rule sucks. It just affects the game. Needs to be 2 calls and you're out. If you reach 5 calls in the year, then a game suspension. I don't know. I don't know how you fix that problem. I don't know if it's something that can be fixed. They want certain hits to be out of the game, and I, did I like the call on Servassier Dennis? Did I like the call on Brandon Hill? Not necessarily. By the letter of the law, do they pretty much meet the standard for targeting? I guess so. I felt like Brandon Hill was, he didn't entirely pull up, but he wasn't running toward the guy. He seemed to almost stop. And so that was a pretty unfortunate one for Hill to go out. When did he went out? I know it was in the second half because now he's out for the entire Syracuse game. No, he'll be out for the first half at Syracuse, and he'll come back. Servassier Dennis will be able to play the whole. Servassier Dennis will be able to play the whole Syracuse game. Brandon Hill will be out for the first half of the Syracuse game. Oh, it was on Virginia's final drive. So 1:47 left to go was when Brandon Hill gets called for targeting. I guess it's fortunate for him that it happened so late. He only missed the final 2 minutes, final 1:47 of this game. He'll only miss the first half at Syracuse. So I guess that's, I guess that's a positive, and it's positive that Servassier Dennis will be back. I think Dennis could have changed this game. I don't think he would have necessarily slowed them down too much, but I think you lose your starting middle linebacker, and that's pretty tough to come back from. That's a hard that's a hard position to lose a player, and particularly a guy like Dennis, who I think has improved a lot over the course of the season and really kind of come on as Pitt's starter and played really well. Played really well at middle linebacker and progressively gotten better throughout the course of the season. And losing him on like the third play of the game was pretty brutal for Pitt. Pretty brutal. But they survived. They gave up 38 points. They gave up 500 yards, but they survived. Lots of comments and questions here that we are definitely going to get to and keep talking about. If you want to make sure your comment gets heard, you can be a super chatter. You should click that little dollar sign down there at the bottom, and you can toss a couple bucks to the podcast, show a little support. We appreciate that for sure. And we will definitely get to your comments and questions if you do that. DC3 got us started with the comments, said, Coastal Champs, I live in Nashville, and you better believe I just bought tickets for Charlotte. See yins there. TRR says, Coastal Champs, I hope the recruits in attendance enjoyed it. Yeah, they had a couple good recruits visiting, some ones that we had confirmed ahead of time, some 4-star guys from the 2023 recruiting class. Those are the guys who are juniors right now. And the thing that I always say, and I've said this a lot over the years, I mean, if you follow Panther-Lair.com or you've listened to these podcasts, you've heard me say it. Recruiting, your current season has the greatest impact on the next year's recruiting class. So right now they're trying to finish up the 2022 recruiting class. They've got 12 guys committed. Signing day is going to be in December coming up. It's about actually less than a month away, I would think. And they're going to try and add pieces to that group. But you're also trying to work on that next year's class, that 2023 class, the class that will sign next December. And those guys, I think, are the ones that will have the current season will have the biggest impact on them. They're the ones who I think, you make a good impression right now. You make a good impression with your performance this season, and then you get them back on campus, for junior days in January or February. You get them back on campus for spring ball in March. In April, you get them back on campus for official visits in June, and you close them. Those are the guys that are going to be influenced the most, I think, by the current season. And that's a good thing for Pitt because the 2015 class has some real studs locally, and they've been involved with a lot of really good prospects nationally in the 2023 class. So I don't know if I just said 2015. I meant to say 2023, but I was looking at something that said 2015. So, that's where you're going to have your biggest impact. I always tell the story of the 2009 team. When Pitt went 10-3 in 2009, all that success they had, they won the bowl game against North Carolina. And I mean, they did okay finishing that recruiting class, that 2010 class that signed the following February. But where they really made hay and where they really made progress was with the next group, the 2011 class. The commitments they got through that summer. I mean, it was 4-star guys. It was high priority targets. I mean, if you followed recruiting back in 2009, 2010, you remember guys like Bill Belton and Jameel Poteet and Keyshawn Jarrett and Terrell Chestnut and Ben Klein and Quentin Alston and a bunch of defensive ends. I mean, they were rolling in recruiting. I mean, they were really good, and they were going to get even more guys. I think they were in great shape with even more guys. Now, obviously, the way that story ended is Dave Wannstedt got fired and the Mike Haywood debacle, and they lost all those commitments anyway. But those guys were influenced by the 2009 season. It wasn't necessarily that class they were building right then, the 2010 class. It was the next class, 2011. This year, and you can actually go back and look at 2018 when Pitt won the Coastal Division. They capitalized. Now, they hired Chris Beatty, and that helped. But that following spring, they had a bunch of guys in the junior class come in for spring ball practices and come in for visits during March and April. And they ended up getting those guys later. I mean, guys like Rodney Hammond. Not even Hammond. Hammond was the 2021 class. It would be more like 2020. I'm trying to think of like who they would have made that impact on, like a Dayon Hayes or Jordan Addison. It actually is a great example. And some of the other guys who were freshmen last year, some of the good scores that they got, the good recruits that they signed in 2020, they were influenced largely by that 2018 season. So, yeah, they had a bunch of recruits on campus or at Heinz Field today, and a lot of those guys were juniors, and I think, you obviously made a big impression on them. When you win the division You got a little ceremony at on the field after the game. You got shirts. Everybody's excited. I'm sure they brought recruits into the locker room. I'm sure that was a wild scene. I mean, everybody's feeling good right now, and recruits definitely are going to feed off of that for sure. Let's see. Matt P says, what a roller coaster, almost no voice. Yet another game that takes 10 years off our collective lives. I mean, isn't that the truth, Matt? I mean, this thing was wild. I mean, you just look at scores of how it went, and Pitt gets up, let's see, where did they get up? They were up 14-7, then Virginia ties it. They go up 21-14, they go up 24-14, and then Virginia comes back and ties it at 24. They go up 31-24, and Virginia ties it. That was which one was the... Yeah, Virginia ties it at 31. Then Pitt scores a couple times, a field goal and a touchdown. They're up by 10. Holy smokes, 41-31. And Virginia ties it in 2 plays. 2-play 75-yard drive to tie it, or not to tie it, but to cut the lead to 3, 41-38. And then Pitt pulls it out at the end, 48-38. It was a pressure cooker. And you had a couple elements at play here. You had, like I said, Brennan Armstrong and those guys. I'll come back to that in a second. But make no mistake about Virginia's motivation here. This was an elimination game for Virginia. This was a win-or-go-home situation. They still have the rivalry game against Virginia Tech left. They're 6-5, so they're going to a bowl game and all that stuff. But this was an elimination game for Virginia from the Coastal Division. If Virginia lost, as they did, they were eliminated. And Pitt won the Coastal. I mean, obviously, that's what happened. But when you're in that kind of situation, you're in an elimination game. Your back is against the wall. You're backed into a corner. Take whatever cliche you want. That's where Virginia was for this game, okay? It's not a surprise that they came out fighting. And then you add into that mix a great quarterback and some really, really dangerous weapons, some receiving targets. And you get a recipe for a team that, and a good offense against a defense that can be beat. And we know they can be beat because we've seen them get beat a bunch of times. That's the recipe for a game that's going to go like this. And sometimes you just got to hang on for dear life. And Pitt hung on for dear life and made just enough plays, including a huge special teams play. That Izzy Abanikanda touchdown return, monster play right there. Monster play. That we probably need to, I shouldn't say we need to talk about it more. What else are you going to say? It was a huge play. But that was a big, big moment in this game. In a game full of big, big moments. Super chatter coming in. Who got? Let's see it. Matt Durney says, Chris, you do a great job with these podcasts. Been to almost every game in the last 15 years. These runs don't come often. Enjoy. Yeah, that's the truth. They don't come often. I mean, you've been following Pitt for how long? You've been following Pitt joining the ACC in 2013. They've won the Coastal twice since then, which is pretty remarkable, actually. But I talked about this. On the Panthers Insider Show on 93.7 The Fan this morning. That when you look at actually winning achieving tangible success, okay? And I'm not talking about the trophies you get for winning the River City rivalry. I'm not talking about the trophies you get for winning a bowl game. I'm not even talking about the trophies that Jackie Sherrill got a couple times in the early 1980s when the team finished number 1 ranked in this poll or that poll. You talk about tangible success, tangible measurements of success, right? Obviously, you have a national championship. You have a conference championship. You have division championships. I mean, these are the kinds of things that you do get a trophy for. You make a T-shirt for. You hang a banner for. Pitt has not had many of those things. National championship in 1976. Big East in 2004. I'm not counting the Big East in 2010, even though they had rings made, which is kind of embarrassing. Coastal Division in 2018. And now this. We've talked, and everybody knows, they haven't won 10 games in a regular season since the 1980s, the early 1980s. They haven't had a regular season with fewer than 3 losses since the 1980s. You're on the verge of those things happening. And more. You're on the verge of those things happening. And the finish line of success for this team, the finish line of accomplishments and achievements for this team, is not even in sight yet. Like I said at the start, you can win 10 games. You can win the conference. You can win a New Year's Six Bowl. His team is capable of all three of those things. And to varying degrees, I think should be expected to accomplish all three of those things to varying degrees. It's tough to say about a bowl game when you don't even know who your opponent is. It's tough to say about the ACC championship game when you don't know who your opponent is. But you don't get a lot of these kinds of runs. I think, I think Matt's absolutely right. You don't get a lot of these kinds of runs. And so, yeah, I hope you're having fun with it. Kyle Peterson says, what a great way for Kenny Pickett to end his career at Heinz Field. Vincent Davis and Jordan Addison were incredible tonight. Yeah, I mean, Vincent Davis played really well. I mean, his runs were really good. They run blocked really well for him, and he made plays. This is not a very good run defense that Virginia has, but, props to Vincent Davis. He made the plays, and played really, really well. Played at a really, really high level. I still think Izzy Abanikanda is their best running back. I still think Rodney Hammond's the man. But props to Vincent Davis. Coaster King, definitely lost years of my life from this one. Are you planning on getting any recruiting reactions, specifically from the 2 Michigan 4-stars? Man, as soon as I am done with this, I will probably send them some text messages, even though it's a little bit late. And anything we get, we'll put on the message boards for sure. Roman, one of our oldest listeners, one of the originals from when we first started this live stream, Roman says, happy with the win, obviously, but what the heck is up with Mark Whipple's play calling in the second half? Run game is rolling and refuses to run late, getting cute with 2 quarterbacks and passing on 3rd and short. Come on. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the 2 quarterback thing. I don't know why you tried that there. I mean, I think you know what you do well, and you should do it. I think that's why they passed as often as they did, even in situations that would seem to be obvious running situations. I think they passed as much as they did because they know what they do well, and they tried to stick with it. They didn't want to deviate from their strengths, and their strength is Kenny Pickett and throwing the ball. But I think you got to, I think you've got to understand that there's a lot you can accomplish by handing the ball off, and you've got talented backs to hand it to. The best backs they've had, I think with Abanikanda, Hammond, and Davis, this is probably the best collection of running backs Pitt has had. Certainly since Dion Lewis and Ray Graham, right? Would you put this group ahead of Quadri Olson and Darren Hall? I think I would. Olson and Hall got a lot more opportunities. They obviously both finished with 1,000 yards each in 2018, but they had a lot more opportunities than these guys are getting. I think if you handed it off to these guys the way they handed it off to those guys, you'd have a couple 1,000-yard rushers this year, too. I think the talent level is that high, particularly with Abanikanda and Hammond, but with Davis as well. Kyle Peterson says, Wake Forest looked very, very beatable tonight against Clemson, feeling good about Pitt's chances in the ACC championship game. But Kevin Plowchat has a reply, says, my only thing is, what if we have to play Clemson again in the ACC championship game? I would not want to. Because Pitt has clinched the Coastal, we can start talking about that kind of thing, of who you would want to see in Charlotte, who you would want to see in the ACC championship game. I go back and forth on some different possibilities. There's a part of me that thinks Wake Forest is a lot like Virginia. They have a very good offense, they have a very good quarterback, they have a great offensive system, and they probably put up a lot of points and a lot of yards on this Pitt defense. But their defense is not very good. What did I say? Clemson scored against them? 48 points. Clemson had 48 points against Wake Forest. They threw 2 touchdown passes. Will Shipley threw one. They rushed for 4 touchdowns. They ran for 333 yards. That's what Clemson's offense did against Wake Forest defense. I think I would like the matchup of Pitt's offense against that Wake Forest defense. So that would probably be my preferred matchup, even though you know that Wake Forest is going to put up a lot of yards and that game would probably look like today's game looked. Then there's Clemson. Yeah, and I kind of agree. I don't think I would want a rematch with Clemson. That defense is really good. It's the best defense in the ACC, one of the best in the country. I don't know if you want to face that defense again, but I probably would take the matchup with Clemson over a game with NC State. who's kind of the third candidate there. I think NC State's defense is better than Wake Forest's defense, and I think Devin Leary's playing really, really well as a quarterback for NC State. I mean, I think he's dangerous. And so you might have maybe the worst matchup there if you ended up with Pitt against NC State in the ACC championship game. So I don't know. That stuff will all play itself out next week, and we'll spend the week talking about who you want Pitt to play. But there's some interesting matchups, some different types of matchups you could potentially run into. Let's see what other comments and questions we've got here. Sports World PA says, great game, but Pitt fumbled the ball by not selling Coastal Championship t-shirts after the game. I don't even know if they sold them last year. I mean, I feel like they, or in 2018, I don't think they sold them. I think they made them for themselves. I'm looking at Pitt's website right now. They don't have anything for sale on their website, but I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think you could buy those shirts in 3 years ago in 2018, could you? I feel like they just made them for themselves to wear after the game. So I'm not sure. Let's see here. Some other comments about who they want to play. Roman says definitely want Wake Forest, not Clemson or NC State. Wake Forest is the most beatable of the three. I think you're right. Alex Fernandez says, any word on Kenny Pickett's ankle status? I mean, he played it off. Somebody asked if he banged it, if he bumped his head, because that's what it kind of looked like a little bit, is maybe he had some, maybe concussion protocol symptoms or something like that. He said no, it was nothing with his head, but just kind of like stopped there. He wasn't really going to talk about it any more than that. So yeah, it seemed like he got taped up or something. He obviously was moving around. I don't think he was playing all that great at the end when he came back in, but made a game-winning touchdown pass, right? So that's pretty. Seemed like he did okay. Let's see here. Royce Beacom says, I wasn't keeping track, but wasn't there a time when the number of possessions when you scored didn't outnumber the times that you... Or no, wasn't there a time... He's asking if... wasn't there a time when the number of possessions when you didn't score outnumbered the times that you did? It's getting close to a basketball change. Is that due to rules changes? Yeah, partially. Let's look at the drives real quick here. Pitt, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12... and then the kneel down. So they have 12 possessions, really, and that's even counting the one at the end of the first half. You could really say 11 possessions. They scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns and 2 field goals. So 11 possessions. They scored on 7 out of those 11. That's pretty effective. Virginia actually punted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And had the interception at the end of the half, but I mean, that kind of doesn't count. They had the turnover on downs, but getting Virginia to punt 6 times, I mean, I know people probably want to bash the defense, but getting six punts out of Virginia's offense is pretty effective. Steve Respec is a super chatter. We appreciate it, man. That's I don't know if you have a comment or question. Let me hear it. We'll definitely get to it, but I don't see what you got. Jeremy Tunney says, Chris, I'm curious. You cover Pitt for your job, but you still get excited like the average fan. Got to imagine this is a special time for you. So no, I not like the average fan. I would say that's not true or not accurate. But what I would say is it's certainly more fun to cover a team that's winning. I was looking back at some of our content from the last month, and even just from November, and we've just had so much content on Panther-Lair.com. And part of that is due to the fact that basketball is happening right now and there's recruiting going on, and obviously the football team with everything they're doing. But there's just, we've had so much content, and that's fun. Like it's fun to put out a lot of content. It's fun to write about a team that's winning. It's fun to find different ways to dig into it and find different things to write about and find different angles to pursue and find different, it's fun to have that volume of content, because we've definitely been through plenty of seasons, all of us, those of us who cover the team and those of you who cheer for the team and all of us who just watch the team. We've been through plenty of lean seasons, 5-6 in 2005. I distinctly remember it was my first year covering the team, and they went 5-6. They went 6-6 the next year. They went 5-7 the year after that. I mean, trying to find things to write about when a team is stumbling toward a 5-6 record, it's not fun. It's not, you know what I mean? And like, you can say you want to be an objective observer, and I think that's certainly what we strive to do. If something's good, you got to say it's good, and if something's bad, you got to say it's bad. But you still want to enjoy your job, and that's not necessarily tied directly to wins. I don't need to enjoy my job by getting to watch wins, and I enjoy wins, but I want to enjoy my job and have fun in writing the things that I write. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to the content we're going to come out with this week. Already thinking about it. Probably as soon as we finish this live stream, I'm gonna get another beer and get some food and start writing again, because it is more fun to write about a team that's winning. And look, let's be honest here. All right, it's a big part of it is the message boards, right? I mean, the message boards are a huge part of what we do at Panther-Lair.com. The message boards are key to the business model. It's what makes the site go, is the message boards. And the message boards are a lot more enjoyable and a lot more pleasant when the team is winning. Like, people can find things to complain about. They always can. Steve Riesbeck, it was a super chatter, and he comes in. He says it's hard to take all the whiners on here still complaining. I'm 70 and have had Pitt tickets since 1969. I love this team. On to Charlotte. Steve's got the right attitude. You know what I mean? Steve's got the right idea. And that's how most of the message board is. I mean, there's always something to complain about, but people are excited on the message board, and that makes it fun. It's fun to go to the message board each day and interact with Pitt fans and talk and have those conversations when it's not all doom and gloom the whole time. I enjoy that. I think it's fun to do that. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy that part of it. So do I sit there and cheer for Pitt to win? No. Is my job demonstrably more enjoyable when they do win? Yes. So it's kind of, it's a little of both. David Allen says, what would be the bowl situation if Pitt wins the ACC or if they lose? If they win, I would say it's almost 100% they would be in the Peach Bowl. I think it would be there'd have to be a lot of other things that sort of happen, or a few key other things that would happen for Pitt to not end up in the Peach Bowl. If they win the ACC championship, I think they'll go to the Peach Bowl. That's where they'll be. If they lose, then you fall into the bowl selection process. And you're looking at, I don't even know where they might be. Yeah, I mean, you could be the Duke's Mayo Bowl. I mean, like, let me see if I can find the bowl selection. I mean, there's the Cheez-It Bowl, the Gator Bowl, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, the Sun Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl. One of those, I would think, would be most likely. Obviously Clemson's not going to make the college football playoffs. I don't think Notre Dame, Notre Dame should stay in a good enough spot where they can get one of the at-large New Year's Six bowl bids. So that's not going to take one of their spots, a spot that Pitt could potentially get. So you would think if they could finish 10-2 in the regular season and they lose the ACC title game and they're 10-3, you would like to think they'll end up in the Cheez-It Bowl or the Gator Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, which one's the Cheez-It Bowl? So the Cheez-It Bowl, the old Citrus Bowl in Orlando. Gator Bowl obviously is in Jacksonville, and the Duke's Mayo Bowl, that's the Charlotte Bowl now. So you would think one of those. You wouldn't think that they would go back to the Sun Bowl, although that's where they went the last time they were Coastal champions and didn't win the ACC. So I mean, maybe that's a possibility. There's always all kinds of machinations and movements and behind door, conversations and things like that. So the easiest way, the best way, the most sure way to do it, what you want to take care of is just go win the ACC championship, and then you'll go to the Peach Bowl. And I don't know about you guys, I'd be down for going to, it'd be fun to go to the Fiesta Bowl and be in Arizona. I'll take Atlanta. I think that game's on December 30th. Go down to Atlanta, spend New Year's Eve down there. Sounds like a great time. So I would be down that. I would be down for that. Let's see here. Matt Durney coming in as another super chatter. We appreciate that. He says, honestly, I don't understand any negative comments tonight. 9-2 Coastal champs, top 4 Heisman candidate, and top 5 wide receiver in the nation. It's going to be interesting to see what some of the betting lines are on the Heisman after this. Kenny Pickett didn't have his best game. I think you could probably make a pretty good case that Brennan Armstrong outplayed him. And that's not a disrespect to Kenny. We're big Kenny fans on this podcast and on this show. But Kenny didn't have his best game. The interception at the start of the second half alone was a bad play. Now, I don't think he's played himself out of a possible. I don't think he's played himself out of an invite. I think he's still on the radar for a potential, to finish top 3, top 4 in the voting for the Heisman Trophy. And certainly he's going to have a lot of opportunities over the next 2 weeks to make his case there. And a lot of people have actually asked about, does anybody rest? Does anybody rest in this game at Syracuse, since it ultimately doesn't have an impact on Pitt's ACC standing? And David Allen says, does the result at Syracuse impact our bowl selection if we lose the ACC title game? I think it does. Yeah, probably. I think, 10-3 Pitt versus 9-4 Pitt. Yeah, 10-win team looks more impressive than a 9-win team, I think. But ultimately, when you get to those selections, it's not really based on the records as much. There's stuff about not jumping a team that's 2 wins better than you and that kind of thing. But ultimately, they all work together and coordinate among the bowls to figure out who they want to put where. So, does Pitt rest guys? I don't know. I think if Kenny Pickett's healthy, he'll play. And then, guys like Taysier Mack and Jalen Barton, and Jake Cradle, I don't think you're going to see them the rest of the year. I don't want to say that definitively, but I don't expect to see those guys play again this season. Keyshawn Camp, didn't play today. I don't know if he could be available in 2 weeks for the ACC title game or not. Melky Stovall didn't play today. I don't know if he could be available in 2 weeks for the ACC title game or not. It's, so those guys, I think what you're really talking about is Kenny Pickett. Do you play Kenny Pickett this week at Syracuse? I think if Kenny has his choice, he'll play. He's a competitive guy. He wants to go out there and he wants to play. I can almost guarantee you. We'll ask him on the Kenny Pickett show this week, hey, you're going to play? But I think if it's up to him, he will absolutely try to play. And Syracuse is tough. They have a tough defense. Their offense is pretty lousy, but their defense is pretty tough. And so that could be a challenging game. And historically, they've gotten after Pitt. They've had close games with Pitt. They've defensively gotten after Pitt. And I think, they'll try to pressure Pickett and hit him and give him a hard time. So that could be a challenging game. Do you want to try and win that with Nick Patty? Do you feel like you could win that with Nick Patty? I don't know. As we sit here, a little after 11 o'clock on November 20th, Saturday, a week away from that game, I would expect Pickett to play. I would expect Izzy Abanikanda to play. And I don't know if anybody else really came out of this game and didn't return. Pickett obviously did return, but you knew he was going to, I think. Owen Drexel came out for a play or two, but he came back in. So I don't know who else would really be a question mark. Nobody off the top of my head. And I'm not going to... I would think Kenny Pickett will play. I would think Kenny Pickett will be... He'll be out there because he's a competitive guy. Let's see if there's any other questions we want to get to here. We're coming up on that hour. It's been fun. I like it. I hope you guys enjoy these conversations, these live streams. I definitely enjoy it, and we definitely appreciate all the super chatters who jump in. It's appreciate it for sure. Matt Durney says, much like the Carolina game, I never thought Pitt would lose. Different confidence level for me as a fan this year. Yeah, I hear you on that, Matt. I have that too. I thought, most of these games, like Carolina game, I just kept thinking they'll be fine. They'll get this. Even when it was really looking like the momentum was swinging to North Carolina, I kept thinking they got this. Duke game, early on, it's 12-7. Duke's winning, right? I'm getting texts from people. Oh, look out. Here we go. Look out. Here we go. I just wasn't concerned. I was like, I think they're going to be fine. Virginia Tech made like a little run late in the game. I was like, nah, I think they got this. Even Clemson, I was relatively confident. This game tonight, though, I'll be honest. There was a point when I started thinking about, all right, what am I going to say about a loss here? I really was. I was really starting to think about it because I felt like it was headed in that direction. There were issues with the offense. The defense certainly couldn't stop Virginia. I thought they were headed for a loss. I was really, but I'm with you on the confidence level. And it's funny, even like, you get to play for a loss or a penalty. They get like a 1st and 15. Previous years, I would have been like, well, they're toast. 1st and 15, they got no chance. This year's team, 1st and 15, 2nd and 15. I don't know. There's a confidence about it that this offense, they'll get it. They'll take care of it. And I mean that's Kenny Pickett. You know what I mean? It's these receivers. It's Jordan Addison. It's this offensive line. It's these running backs. And it's what they've done for 11 games now. I think we're past the point of questioning, like, is this offense real? Is Kenny Pickett for real? And I think most of the people on this live stream or listening to this podcast aren't questioning whether Kenny Pickett's for real, or aren't questioning whether this offense is for real. I think we're all pretty sold on it. and I think it's at a point where every time they get the ball, it is a disappointment when they don't score a touchdown because you feel like they're capable of scoring a touchdown every time they get the ball. And it's almost a surprise sometimes when they fall short, when Kirk Christodoulou has to come out and punt. Benjamin Glazer says, I 100% thought the last touchdown was picked off. I got to watch more replays of it. I tried to watch as many replays as I could. It looks like the Virginia guy has the ball. And it looks like Jordan Addison rips it away from him. It looks like an interception. And that doesn't necessarily, automatically turn the game to Carolina or to Virginia. But you're looking at, if that pass is picked off, you're looking at Virginia getting the ball, 2 minutes to play, trailing by 3. And they get the ball, who knows where. The pass was from the Pitt 38, threw it probably, I don't know, where was it? Probably around the 40 or 35 or so, the Virginia 40 or 35. So, that guy might return it. Maybe, let's say he gets to the Virginia 45. And now Virginia has the ball at the 45 they don't have any timeouts, but they got 2 minutes left to drive for a field goal to tie or a touchdown to win. It looked like it was picked off. And Jordan Addison just took it away from the guy. It was impressive. Dan Gwynn says, was Addison's performance today the best wide receiver game in the 2000s for Pitt? Might be recency bias, but big game in a division clinching game, it's hard to compete with. I'm going to need to be on another day when I think about Jordan Addison versus some of the performances that Larry Fitzgerald has had. Addison topped 200 receiving yards today for the first Pitt receiver to do that since Larry Fitzgerald. So he's in that conversation. Is he on? I can't put him on the level of Larry Fitzgerald. Jordan Addison is great. He has played himself as one of the best receivers in Pitt history. He might be number 2. Your conversation right now is like Jordan Addison, Tyler Boyd, and Antonio Bryant as the who is number 2. There's only gonna be one number 1, and I'm not sure if anyone really will ever replace that. It's going to take a special player to top Larry Fitzgerald in his place in Pitt history. So it's a battle for number 2. And I think Antonio Bryant, who has faded into history a little bit and faded from memory a little bit, but that's unfortunate because he's, one of the best receivers in Pitt history. I think it's Antonio Bryant, it's Tyler Boyd, and it's Jordan Addison. Those 3 guys are the ones you look at and you say, okay, who's the second best receiver in Pitt history? And, numbers-wise, Bryant, Boyd, neither one of them caught 15 touchdowns in a season. Okay, Bryant had 13. Addison now has 15. And he did it in 11 games, too. I think Bryant probably did it in 11 games in 2000 when he had 13 touchdown catches that year. But Julius Dawkins has 16 receiving touchdowns in a season. That's number 2 on the all-time Pitt record books, behind Larry Fitzgerald, who caught 22 in 2003. So, Jordan Addison needs 2 more receiving touchdowns to be second all-time on the career or single season receiving touchdowns list in Pitt history. But Larry's number 1. Addison's battling for number 2. Maybe he's already there. Some comments about the receivers in here. Josh Newark says, just got home. Wanted to say thanks for keeping me awake the last hour of my drive on the turnpike. Hey, I'm glad we could, look, this is like a drive home podcast for you, Josh. I'm glad you could tune in. And I'm glad you weren't trying to join the chat, while you were driving. That wasn't safe. So I appreciate that. Let's see here. Talking about all-time Pitt receivers. Wait, there were some good comments here. Jeremy Tunney says that Jordan Addison is number 2. Zachary Herbster brings up Lateef Grimm, who was another great one, another great receiver in Pitt history for sure. David Allen points out that Tyler Boyd didn't have a quarterback like Kenny Pickett. Jordan Addison is number 3 to me. You know what I'll say, though, and it's not exactly a perfect comparison. Tyler Boyd didn't have Kenny Pickett, but he did have Tom Savage. And before you laugh about that, Tom Savage is going to has gone down as one of the great underrated quarterbacks in Pitt history. He came out of that Pizza Bowl at halftime because I think he took some hits in the first half in that game against Bowling Green, and he was peeing blood at halftime. And so they decided to keep him out of the game. And Chad Wojcik came in, and they ended up winning the game and all that stuff. But Tom Savage, if he had played the whole game against Bowling Green, would have finished with a 3,000-yard season. And as we know, because we've heard some of the numbers tossed around as they talk about Kenny Pickett's season this year, there aren't a lot of 3,000-yard seasons in Pitt history. And Tom Savage was, half of a bowl game away from getting there. Tom Savage was good in 2013. The offensive line was bad. They couldn't protect him. He got sacked too many times. He got hurt, got knocked around. Virginia took a pretty dirty shot at him that I think gave him a concussion, even though he stayed in the game and that kind of thing. But Tyler Boyd had a pretty good quarterback, but that was Boyd's freshman season. So the next year he played with Chad Wojcik, and that was a mess in 2014. 2015 starts off with Wojcik, ends up with Nate Peterman as the quarterback, who Peterman was pretty good. But I hear what you're saying. Addison has not had Pickett, but I don't think we can take anything away from Addison. Pickett has, I don't think we can take anything away from Addison. As good as Pickett has been, he's benefited from having Addison as much as Addison has benefited from having Pickett. He's playing at a really high level. Jeremy Tunney says Fitzgerald's number 1, then Tyler Boyd, then Jordan Addison, then Antonio Bryant. I won't entirely disagree with that. Let's see where Jordan Addison finishes up this season and see where he finishes up his Pitt career next year, because I'm assuming he's probably not going to play 4 years. Let's see. Pittsburgh Sports All the Time says Fox just showed their Heisman watch on TV. Kenny was on the screen. Who would have thought we would see that 2 or 3 years ago? Well, I think after after that game against Miami in 2017, I thought there was a chance. I think we all thought, oh, Kenny Pickett, this guy's going to become he's going to be a Heisman candidate. And then, 2018 happened and he didn't really look like one. In 2019, he didn't look like one. And last year, he didn't look like one. But as a senior, he's been the man for sure. Pittsburgh Sports All the Time also says now they're also talking about Jordan Addison as being the most underappreciated wide receiver in the nation. Would I agree? Sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who the competition is for that title, but if Jordan Addison, I mean, he's a Biletnikoff Award semifinalist. He's got the numbers. I think he's, anybody who looks at the NCAA's stats website, they're going to find Jordan Addison's name all over the receiving numbers. And he's breaking Pitt records, He's got 15 touchdown catches this year. I mean, I don't know if he's underappreciated or not. I would have to pay more attention to what the national perception is. But I know he's playing at a really high level, for sure. David Allen says Addison is playing against weak defenses compared to teams that Antonio Bryant, Lateef Grimm, and Tyler Boyd went up against. I mean, you can't possibly remember that, David. Come on, man. Who did Lateef Grimm play against? Tell me the stud defenses that he played against. And I'm not saying he didn't play against good defenses, but yards are yards, Like you put up production over the course of a season, and if you do, you get credit for that. And Jordan Addison deserves a lot of credit for the season he's having right now. I don't know. Maxwell Hahn says, shout out to Gordon Jones as well. All-American, I think, in 77 or 78. I think you're right. Media guys over there. Not going to look it up. You're right. Yeah. Gordon Jones. I think he was a All-American. I'll buy it. Who cares? It's 11:30 at night. Quarter after 11 at night, right? Dan Gwynn says, Chris, did you have any post-game tailgate shots? I didn't, we talked about this last week. Or on Wednesday night, that I was going to do shots in the parking lot if they won the Coastal Championship. And I didn't get a chance to do that. I was rushing out. There were still tailgates going on when I left the stadium. Time did I leave? Probably around close to 9 o'clock. I left the stadium. And there were still tailgates going on in the parking lots. And it looked like fun. I would have... I would have liked to stop by a few and do a few post-game shots in the lots, as our buddy Andy said. Shots in the lots would have been a lot of fun, but just didn't work out tonight. It's tough when we've got these, post-game shows that are obviously the priority. It's what I want to come and do, and so it takes priority over hanging out in the parking lot and doing shots. So let's see. Tito Panther says hello. Hello. Let's see. Jeremy Tunney says, thoughts on the crowd tonight? How was the atmosphere? The crowd wasn't good. They announced like 41,000. I think I got it right here. They announced 45,183. I guess that's good. I hoped for more. On senior day, the final home game of the season, chance to clinch the Coastal, big-time game, and all those things. I thought they would do better. Students, I guess students were allowed to go home. They don't have classes on Monday or Tuesday, so they were able to go home early for Thanksgiving break, and that cut into the into the Panther Pit. Although, as Josh Newark points out, it was still a good showing from the Panther Pit on on a holiday break weekend. But the crowd, I hoped for better. I thought it might be better. But the ones that were there, the 45,000 that were there, they got loud. And there was a point at the end. It was the 3rd and 2 maybe, or the 4th and 2, somewhere like late in the game, or maybe after the touchdown, actually. And I felt the press box shaking a little bit from the fans. You know what I mean? People were really getting fired up. And so it wasn't as big of a crowd as I would have liked to have seen, but, props to the people who showed up because they made an impact. Tito Panthers, super chatter. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for jumping in. Anthony Spurdute says, what coaches will be ripe for poaching this offseason? Have to assume someone tries to pull Partridge. Can't get a feel if someone goes for a Whipple. All right, so I'll say this. I haven't talked to Mark Whipple about this. I haven't talked to Charlie Partridge about this. I know that Partridge has had opportunities to leave in the past couple years, and Pitt has done what's necessary to keep him with the Panthers. At some point, I mean, he's been a head coach. I think it could go two ways. He could either say, I've been a head coach, I don't want to do that again, or I've been a head coach and I want to get another opportunity. I think he's someone that would be high on a lot of lists for, even for a defensive coordinator position. So, we'll see there. We'll see if those opportunities come. We'll see if Pitt steps up. As far as Mark Whipple, he's an older guy. I'm not sure that Mark Whipple, he's been a head coach. He's been in the NFL. He's been a coordinator all over the place. I would guess, depending on how this season finishes, Mark Whipple's decision in the offseason will be more a question of, it won't be, do I take this job or stay at that job? Or do I take that job or stay at this job? It might be more a question of, do I stay at this job or do I retire? And again, that's not based on any insight from Whipple. He's not talking to me about his personal plans or thoughts or anything like that. But he's an older coach. He's been around a long time. He's got a chance to have a really special season here and then start over with a new quarterback next year. Somebody who's been in the system, but a brand new starter. I could see that being a consideration for him. All right, Tito Panther, as a super chatter, we're going to give you the last word. He says, anyone else starting to black out? I'm in the gray out area now, headed towards brown. And Tito, I appreciate you for checking in as you're heading toward a blackout. I hope you're being responsible and taking care of yourself, but I appreciate you checking in and being a super chatter. And I think that's probably a good note to end on as Pitt beats Virginia 48-38. 9-2 overall, 6-1 in the ACC Coastal Division champions, going back to Charlotte December 4th for the ACC championship game after they finish the regular season at Syracuse next Saturday night. You probably would have liked this game to be more one-sided. You would have liked Pitt to control it all the way. But you know what? They did what they needed to do. They made big plays. They scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Scored 1 touchdown in the third quarter. Got another field goal. They took care of business. They did what they had to do. The opportunity was there. They reached out and grabbed it. And now the next opportunity is in front of them. Opportunity to win 10 games. Opportunity to go to win the ACC championship. Opportunity to go to a New Year's Six Bowl and potentially win that. It's all right there in front of them. The opportunity is all there. And just like the opportunity was there today for the Coastal Championship, those opportunities are there as well, and Pitt will have a chance to reach out and grab them. All right, listen, stay tuned to Panther-Lair.com. Home Field, I haven't even talked about Home Field. They have the best Pitt shirts you're going to find, homefieldapparel.com. Good Friday or Black Friday sale, and it's going to go all the way through to Cyber Monday. 20% off everything they have. You don't even need a promo code. Great Pitt designs. I don't have a Home Field shirt on right now because I was working tonight. But great Pitt designs, the high-quality shirts. I mean, you've heard my spiel about this before, but it's the best. I mean, they have great Pitt shirts, great college sports shirts. Buy them as gifts for other people. Buy them for yourself. And if you order them between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you get 20% off. You can't lose on that deal. You don't even need a promo code. homefieldapparel.com. Panther-Lair.com, of course, is the website for us. Panther-Lair.com. Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, recruiting. You find it all at Panther-Lair.com. And, of course, message boards where they're buzzing tonight, baby. They are buzzing tonight. People excited about Pitt football right now and about Pitt football's win. So go check that out, Panther-Lair.com. Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Thanks everybody who joined in on the live chat tonight. We appreciate it. You're super chatters. You guys are the best. And everybody listening to the podcast, we appreciate that as well. So listen, Pitt won. Have a great rest of the weekend. Have a great week. We'll be back on Wednesday night for our regular show, 8:30 p.m. Panther-Lair show, right here on Panther-Lair.com, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Listen, if you're still here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on Wednesday night.